ħabba din ma tistax.
Alone in a room with the Prime Minister.
Oh, alone with her, in a room with Chris Fergie.
First of all, thank you very, very much for accepting to do this interview with Love in Malta. You seem to have lost a lot of weight recently. What's your secret? Nothing is working with me.
No, I think it's a very strict regime. So I looked at the mirror one day and said, I need to lose a couple of pounds. And basically I stuck to a regime, did away with the carbs, with sugars and all the rest, well, with all the nice things.
And you feel better?
Well, at first I felt much worse. Then it started getting better, but I have a couple of cheat days every week. So then I have my fill of carbs and sweets.
Yes. You've been Prime Minister for more than 3 years now. What has been your proudest day so far?
Really and truly, I think the day we introduced civil unions. I think that was really one of the biggest achievements. So I could go on with a long list of economic achievements, which people feel in their pockets, really and truly, but that was...
More emotional for you?
Yes, very emotional, and it was a life-changing moment for so many people. It was the day that there was a clear signal that Malta started changing for good and for real. So I think that's a very proud moment.
And what about the worst day? What was your biggest failure?
Well, I think there were two moments which I really felt, well, I hope I took them in my stride. The first was when we had the sinking of one boat off Lampedusa, which was in the territory between Malta and Italy, and together with the then Prime Minister Letta, we had to coordinate basically the gathering from the sea of so many hundreds of corpses. And the second was during the Panama debacle. It was quite a hit, since that.
What was it like to find out that your two right-hand men, or the two people on the right and left, in a sense, had these structures in Panama without them?
Well, I think that
it must have been a real hit.
The whole story was disappointing to me. Disappointing in the sense that I think they had their reasons, they explained their reasons, but at the end of the day, I think that it dented people's trust in the whole political system, and I need to work hard to rebuild that trust, not only in me, but I think people do understand what I stand for, what I mean, what I do. But I think that, yes, it was a huge lesson that I learned.
Did you feel sort of personally a bit betrayed by them for that? Or?
I felt disappointed, not by one single person. I think they explained their position, and I believe their position. So I think I was so disappointed that the good things that we were doing during that period went by unnoticed, and people were focusing on just this issue.
You said you want to try and move on from that and sort of rebuild people's trust. One of the things that was promised was these audits of the sort of situations. 3 months have passed and
yes,
there haven't been these
audits are not easy if you need to do comprehensive
audits. Was it
audits.
just a smoke screen? Or?
Not at all, because once they are concluded, they will be public.
Okay, and they are still taking place?
Yes. Okay.
Obviously, these are, not acceptable standards, I imagine. How do you feel, as in the fact that these two people behaved in this way? Is that acceptable to you?
No, I think that we let people down. I think people expect more. I think it's no excuse saying that our predecessors did worse things. But I think that responsibility was shouldered. Decisions were taken. And now we're moving on from this, and we're showing in each and every sector that we're tackling. See, for example, the new appointments to the judiciary, the way we have changed the appointment system to the judiciary. We're showing that we mean business when it comes to transparency, when it comes to accountability.
Let me read you something that was said before the election. We will have the highest political standards in Europe and will not tolerate any corruption. Standards of behavior that have been accepted under a nationalist administration will not be accepted by Dr. Muscat. If one of his ministers acts improperly, he will be out the next day. Do you know who said this?
I wouldn't know, maybe myself.
It was Konrad Mizzi, actually.
Well, what I can tell you is that during this administration, I've taken decisions. There were ministers that had to go. And I think
Do you think you've lived up to the standard, though?
I think that we've lived up to a standard that was never reached its heights by any other administration, where I took the decisions, I fired ministers, I asked ministers to resign, people resigned out of their own will, I took portfolios from people. So I think this was never done before.
You always said you have a 15-year plan in 5 years in opposition and 10 years in government. Nowadays, you say you're achieving results even quicker than was expected. So are you still dead set on those 5 more years?
Yes, yes.
And why? What is it about the country that still needs changing, that you haven't yet managed to change?
Well, I think in the next 5 years, if people trust us again for another 5 years, once the next 2 years are over and done with, we will be able to focus then on more infrastructural changes, changes where you can see the physical difference between the country as it was and the country as it will become. And I hope that we will be able to achieve some changes in our constitution, some changes that are even more enduring.
So you've given up the constitution thing this legislature?
I haven't given up, but I'm realistic, and it's more piecemeal rather than a holistic exercise. So the changes in the judiciary were part of the constitutional reform, but they're being done in a piecemeal manner. I would like in the second term, if people grant us a second term, more civil union moments.
One of the worrying, possibly one of the most worrying failures of this government, in my opinion, is the state of the police force. I mean, in December 2015, you said there was need for a total shake-up, and since then, we've just had another police commissioner resign, and we've been without a police commissioner for the past 3 months.
Well, we have an acting police commissioner that's doing his job brilliantly.
But we don't have, let's say, a commissioner on economic crimes, a cynical person would say this is related to Panama, and
Well, I'm not that cynical. I would say that we have made achievements in the armed forces that have made strides ahead, really, from one strength to another. On the other hand, yes, I acknowledge that there was a lack of vision in the police force. I don't attribute it to one particular commissioner. It's the fact that they were dealing with firefighting each and every day. And it's only now that we were setting up a proper academy to train people in the police force. It's only now that we have tourism police. It's only now that we are really working hard to restructure the police force and getting on board a CEO. And this is not the result of any 3 years. This is the result of so many years where the police force, I think, was just engaged in firefighting and didn't keep up with times.
One of the sort of examples of perhaps how it's not keeping up with the times is the way that it's still behaving on drug crimes. It seems that they haven't really updated themselves as the way the law was updated last year.
I think there is a disconnect.
We asked the police recently how many people have been caught, for example, arrested with less than 3.5 grams of marijuana, as the law sort of allowed. 101 people
I think there
were
is a
arrested.
disconnect. I think there is a disconnect, and I would rather see the police force focusing more on breathalyzer tests, on making sure that people who drive are capable of driving, are in their proper senses, and clamping down on irresponsible drink drivers or people under the effect of substances that don't allow them to concentrate.
But is it acceptable that as in, okay, you're saying they would rather focus their efforts on that, but you changed the law last year, and still it seems something like cannabis is still being treated as a crime. Is this where you stop being progressive? Is this the limit?
Chris, this is the realization that government is not one hegemonic monolith. It's made up of different factors, different forces, and really and truly, there is a huge difference from a policy decision that's taken from a policy direction that's given until it percolates down.
So in your opinion, how should the police act, for example, if they find someone with a joint?
They should follow the law. They should be reasonable. They should follow the spirit also of the changes in legislation that we have made, where people are being cautioned rather than treated like criminals when it comes to cannabis. And
taking a page out of Justin Trudeau's book, or?
Well, I think this is a natural progression, really and truly. And I'm telling you, my major concern right now is inebriated people who are at the driver's seat.
There's been a crazy amount of deaths, no?
Yes, I think it's unacceptable. And I have asked the Justice Minister to look at the system we're adopting right now, at the kind of fines, the kind of...
But would fines solve that, you think? You think fines will...
Isn't
it also a problem with the infrastructure, with the fact that there are...
No,
another point I want to bring up is the environment. At the moment, it seems like everywhere is covered in cranes, everywhere is covered in construction.
I don't think that it's a related issue.
Isn't it infrastructure as well, the way we're building?
I think that there are many decent countries where it wouldn't cross your mind having 3 or 4 glasses of wine and then driving home. It would be unacceptable. It would be you would know that you're risking not only your life but other people's life, and you're risking your driving license. Over here, it is almost standard norm that it's part of the game, and it's not just possible. It's weddings, it's parties, it's all the rest. So I think that it's one of the very few areas where I don't exclude being draconian, where I would say, look, let's be hard on those who break the law.
Do you also acknowledge, though, that there is a problem of infrastructure here in the country? Yes, you mentioned infrastructure as being what you're seeing for sort of term 2, as being your big project. So do you accept that our current infrastructure is...
It's crumbling.
It's crumbling.
It is crumbling. It is crumbling.
And isn't it getting worse with all this overdevelopment, in a sense? Or?
Well, let's put it that way. This is a good problem to have, in the sense that it is becoming a problem because the country is moving ahead, the economy is booming, so many people are coming to visit us, so many tourists are coming here, so many investors are coming here, and the population is increasing. So we wouldn't have this problem if no one was interested in Malta, if there was no investment, if there was no tourism. So we wouldn't have a crumbling infrastructure, but we would have a disastrous economy. We're on the other side of the argument. So yes, this is a problem that we need to face, and maybe it's also the result of so many years. And I'm not blaming it on the nationalist government no, it's the result of so many years. People just thinking in terms of 2, 3, 4 years when it comes to infrastructure, rather than doing the right thing right away.
While this could be a good problem to have in the sense that there is a lot of interest in Malta, with the housing situation is getting harder for a lot of young people. A lot of young people can barely afford to rent at the moment. What do you tell these people? Do you think this is the price we have to pay for having your sort of pro-business attitude towards the economy?
No, I think that I understand the problem, I understand the issue, I understand the fact that with 30,000 or so foreigners coming to work here in Malta, and with
working in iGaming, where there's, for example, such great salaries.
And with the stock of housing being what it is, it's only natural that the prices will go up. We need to address that. So you address that with more quality and sensible developments, but you also address that with addressing the inefficiencies of the rent market. So in our next budget, we're looking very carefully at the rental market and seeing how that can be addressed to help especially young Maltese families.
by providing more regulation limitations, or how
Not
how do you?
necessarily. We're looking at both supply side and demand side.
I mean, the fear is that at some point, let's say an industry like iGaming, if that were to suddenly find a new home elsewhere, through no fault of the government's own, but maybe another country decides to become more attractive to them, would be left with a lot of housing that is being developed for them. And what are we doing what's our backup plan in that sense? What is the next big industry for Malta?
That's why we have the American University. That's why we have the new investments when it comes to healthcare. So I think education and healthcare, together with logistics, they are the three big new things that we will have in our country, and that will attract more investment. So
that will protect us from that sort of eventuality.
I don't think you can protect yourself by simply saying, I want to protect myself with new industries. This is a race. It should not be a race to the bottom. It should be a race towards better quality of life. But you don't solve problems by simply thinking that you can stop, because it's like you're in a treadmill, and if you just stop, you're just bang, you're down. You're down and out. So really and truly, I think it's an illusion saying, let's not do this, because then if they leave, we might. It doesn't work that way. It works the other way around. You need always to be one step ahead with thinking about new areas, but making sure that these guys don't leave. And so being more competitive, being more attractive to foreign direct investment. That's why the pro-business attitude is imperative.
Moving on to international affairs now. You're very rarely asked about international affairs, but I'd like to, first of all, I mean, what's happening in the UK? My question is, what's the first thing you're going to tell Boris Johnson when you meet him as Foreign Secretary, for example?
I think he's a nice guy at the end of the day. And from what I'm seeing in the first couple of interviews he gave, I think he's getting to grips with the real world. So
things he said in the past sort of haunting him in the today.
I love that phrase he used about the thesaurus of offenses he has dished out over the years, and that he cannot go on a litany of apologies. So, he was a journalist, he said things, he wrote things. I see the British Prime Minister's take on why she appointed him. And I think she's smart. I think she's very smart in doing that.
What about moving on to the other side, Jeremy Corbyn? Do you have any advice for him and the British Labour Party? I mean, it seems that they're in a worse state than the Malta Labour Party was before you took over. Don't you agree?
Well, I had a lunch with Jeremy Corbyn when he was here in Malta in December, and we agreed that we basically disagree about everything.
Yes.
So I think he's a very decent guy. I think he's very nice. I think he has very sound values. And
so today you feel sort of almost closer to the conservative side of the UK, I guess?
Well, I don't feel close to anyone really right now in the United Kingdom. And I do think that I feel in a way so many people feel in the United Kingdom right now.
Annoyed about Brexit, for example? Worried?
I wouldn't feel annoyed about Brexit. I would feel annoyed about the fact that there is no plan B. And we have to wait until the end of the year to get to know what kind of relationship Britain now wants to have with the European Union. I would have imagined that people would have had this figured out well before the referendum.
So that I guess that's your first question to Boris Johnson when you meet him next, right?
Well,
what's happening?
And to the Prime Minister, my question would be, what do you want?
Moving on to the US, obviously that's heating up as well. What do you make of the battle now between Trump and Clinton? Who are you rooting for?
Naturally, Clinton.
But do you think Trump is a danger to the world? Do you think he's a danger to the US? Or you?
Well, to be realistic, I think that I do hope, at least, that as in many cases, once people get elected to office, even if they have these, campaigns where they say the most outrageous of things, once the weight of office comes to you, you realize that you need to get serious.
Do you think that happened to you as well? Were
It
there
happens
things
to
you said
everyone.
in the past that now
No,
you kind
no,
you feel like you've grown up from them in a
No,
sense?
I think I've said things in the past where I understand what I meant. I do think they were right, but they're not easy to implement. And that's why I'm grateful that we've nearly implemented 70% of our electoral manifesto in the first 3 years. It seems that most of the things we said were deeply rooted in reality.
So you are not that worried about Trump becoming the president of the United States?
I think the United States is such a big democracy, such a solid country, that irrespective of who is president, there will be repercussions, yes, but at the end of the day, there will be a coming to terms with reality.
When you look at everything that's happening around the world right now, I mean, we mentioned Trump and Brexit, and obviously there was the coup in Turkey, the attempted coup in Turkey as well, and so many acts of terrorism, one after another in so many different places. I don't know, do you get the sense that something is happening in the world, that something is... How do you explain all these things? Or is it just sort of run of the mill, sort of this is what happens in the world? Are you sensing something different?
No, I think every generation experiences a situation where they feel that history is happening, where things are changing. I think that the biggest single change that we have right now is that the previous generation always knew who the enemy was in a way or another, or who the people disrupting the whole balance of things were. Right now, I think all the credible world forces who want a sense of balance in world affairs could be fighting a guy who's driving a truck down the boulevard in Nice and killing people. How do you fight that? So you're not sitting down to negotiate with even the most...
It's like we're fighting on different levels,
Yes,
completely different levels.
Totally. You don't have a counterpart. Mm-hmm. You cannot talk to these people because you don't even know who these people are.
Does that make politicians, politics, bureaucracy, does that make it all sort of obsolete?
I think it makes it irrelevant if it stays the way it is, yes. I think that the time of political parties is over. I've said that for quite some time. I think there is more the idea of a movement now, not only here in Malta, but in many other places. But it's also that politicians need to understand that the political elite, the political class as we know it, is over and done with. And the faster we realize that, the better it is for everyone.
The political elite, you said?
Yes, there is a political elite. It's obvious.
And what is that exactly? As in,
well,
it's interesting that's a narrative that has developed in the US, is developing in the UK as well, is developed in Turkey as well to an extent.
No, I think
you're
it's
sort of developing it here as
I
well.
think it's people who...
Are you part of the political elite?
I hope not. I think it's people who believe that they are God sent to lead, and that elections are just irritating events that need to be catered for. No, it's the other way around.
Thank you very much. Just last question. You had your first sort of encounter with Love in Malta. I was answering our quiz, How Maltese Are You? Who out of curiosity, who had you actually come up?
You tell me.
I tell you.
You tell me.
I don't know. We don't know the stats.
Definitely Caruana Galizia.
Okay. So that's it. I think now we can just go Pokemon hunting around Castile together or something. Thank you very much for this interview.